In the spring of 1909, Adele Boas suddenly disappeared while out for the day in Manhattan. She was the young daughter of a wealthy family in New York, and so it made sense that when news of her disappearance became public, a media storm ensued. So, what happened to her? Join me to find out. Adele Edith Boas was born in New York City late in 1895. She came from a prosperous family of Jewish Americans, whose roots were in Central Europe. It is important to understand their prominence in America to fully grasp why Adele's story briefly became national news in the US in 1909. The Boas family hailed from the Silesia region of the Kingdom of Prussia, in what is now the tripartite border region between Germany, Poland, and the Czech Republic. One member of the family, Emil Boas, had left there for the United States in 1874 when he was just 19 years old. He soon established himself as a successful shipping and transport businessman in America, drawing on his family's connections in the same industry back in Europe. Soon other family members began to join him in the US, leaving the growing anti-Semitism of European society behind. His cousin Arthur was one of these. Arthur Boas was Adele's father, and he had married Blanche Hofstadter. They subsequently had 3 children, of which Adele was the middle child. The eldest was her brother Percy, while a second daughter Edith was the baby of the family. Arthur went on to establish a successful thread business, and was an important figure in the New York textile industry by the dawn of the 20th century. However, the real family wealth was amassed by cousin Emil, who by 1900 was the general manager and resident director of the Hamburg America Steamship Company. This was one of the largest transport companies in the world, and it ferried millions of people between Europe and the Americas in the early 20th century. Thus, Emil was a very wealthy man, and Adele was born into a significant family of Jewish American immigrants, and while they weren't on par with the likes of the Astors and the Vanderbilts, the Boas family name did command respect in New York high society at the time. Despite her affluent background, the world would never have heard of Adele Boas were it not for the events of Friday the 23rd of April, 1909. By that time Adele was 13 years of age and was described as being tall, blue-eyed, blonde, and with a striking resemblance to her father. She had a privileged life, with maids diligently attending to her and her siblings' every need. The family lived in a large townhouse on West 88th Street next to Central Park in Manhattan, a building that was large enough that a fence surrounded the Boas house. From here Adele attended a prestigious Jacobi school, a progressive co-education school that Laura Jacobi, herself a Jewish emigre from Germany to the US, had founded in 1896. Today, though, it is known as the Calhoun School. Yet, despite her privileged circumstances, Adele was apparently unhappy with her lot in Manhattan, and in particular, with what she perceived as her parents' oppressive behavior, having her chaperone to and from school each day. This would explain the events of the 23rd of April, 1909. That day, Adele and her mother Blanche headed out to run some shopping errands. Prior to leaving the house, Adele had phoned a friend to make plans to meet with her later that evening. Then, when they were out shopping, Adele told her mother that she was tired and wanted to head back to the house. Blanche agreed and sent her on her way with directions to the house, which was only a few streets away. However, when Blanche returned to the Boas house on West 88th Street at around 6 p.m., her daughter was nowhere to be seen, and she did not return home that night. Thus, on the morning of the 24th of April, after they had enlisted the help of cousin Emil, the Boas family reported Adele missing. We can only imagine how worried and scared her parents were, and what happened next might surprise you. As soon as Adele Boas' disappearance was announced, a media storm ensued. There were good reasons for this. Arthur Boas immediately let it be known that he was offering a $1,000 reward for information on the recovery of his daughter, a very substantial sum, equivalent to around $45,000 in today's money. This, along with the status of the wider Boas family in the New York business community, led to many major New York and East Coast newspapers carrying the story on the 25th of April. In tandem, the Pinkerton Detective Agency, the foremost investigative agency in the United States in the 19th and early 20th centuries, were hired to begin looking for clues for little Adele's whereabouts. Initially, almost zero information of any kind was forthcoming, leading to a lot of gossip, and before long, a wide range of rumours and theories about where Adele might be started to circulate around the bars and drawing rooms of New York City. Some of these reflected contemporary concerns about the automobile revolution of the 1900s, in speculating that Adele had been driven over by a car. Others inevitably concluded that she'd been killed or kidnapped. Another theory held that Adele was mentally unstable, and claimed that she'd been seen sleeping rough in Morningside Park in Upper Manhattan. The only thing which tied these theories together was that none of them were based on evidence of any kind. But would one of these theories prove to be true? Adele's parents hoped for the best, but as the hours and days passed, they grew increasingly anxious of their daughter's whereabouts. In the end, all the theories were wrong. On the 26th of April, by which time Arthur Boas had increased the reward he was offering from $1,000 to $5,000, two individuals contacted the police to state that they had information concerning Adele's whereabouts. These were Mrs. Elizabeth Upton and Mr. Adolph Helther, two residents of Boston. Helther was able to confirm that Adele was in New England, 200 miles north of New York, where she had disappeared from 3 days earlier. He also informed the authorities that she was on her way south back on a train to Manhattan. So it was that Adele Boas pulled into Grand Central Station at around 2 p.m. on the 26th of April 1909. There she was greeted by her uncle Emil and some of the investigators he had hired. When she got off the train, there was nothing in her appearance to indicate that she had been under any severe strain, either physically or mentally. They proceeded to the Upper West Side and the Boas family home, where Adele greeted her parents. She was then seen to by the family physician, who said she was in perfect health and only needed sleep. The following day, publications like the New York Times and the New York Tribune reported that Adele had been found alive and well and was reunited with her family. But questions remained, like where had she been and what had she been doing between her disappearance on the 23rd and her reappearance on the 26th, and what was this strange journey to Boston all about? In the hours following Adele's reappearance in New York, her story became clearer. She claimed, been upset about her parents' overbearing approach to her schooling and life in general. Adele, it appears, was being teased by her school friends about the fact that she was chaperoned to and from school every day by a maid in the employ of the Boas family. She consequently determined that she would run away briefly, for a week or so, in order to demonstrate that she could look after herself. What had tipped her over the edge was that on the day she disappeared, her mother had given her such precise instructions about how to walk the several blocks to their house, as though she didn't know the way herself. As a result, when Adele left her mother that afternoon, she did head home, but only for long enough to collect her small amount of savings, some $14 from her room. She then left again and took the crosstown car or tram across Manhattan to the Grand Central Station. From there she boarded the train to Boston. There seemed to be no particular reason for her choosing that destination, other than that it was a city she had heard a lot about and could travel directly to on the train from New York. Once she reached Boston, Adele had managed to acquire a room in a boarding house with her small bit of money, paying for it in advance and giving a fake name. The following day she walked around the streets of Boston and set about finding a job. Here is where Elizabeth Upton came into the equation. Adele acquired a position as a waitress at a restaurant in the Charleston district of Boston working for Upton and spent Sunday the 25th of April working there. And here was where Adele Boas' plan fell apart. During her shift, she cut her finger while slicing bread, and decided that she didn't like her new job. So, on the 26th of April, she set off back to Manhattan. During Adele's return journey, police boarded the train looking for her. They soon came across her and asked if she was the missing girl Adele Boas, but she lied, saying that her name was Freda Doughton, and even put on a fake German accent and pretended not to understand English very well. So clever was Adele's ruse that the police were baffled. They reported to the New York police that the missing girl was not on the train. Adele certainly had her wits about her, as other passengers were also deceived by her acting and were convinced that she was merely Freda Doughton, a German girl on her way to New York. Yet, around an hour before her train was to arrive in New York, a detective identified her and, after speaking to her for a while, finally got her to admit that she was Adele Boas. When questioned about why she lied to police regarding her identity, she stated, "Because I didn't want to go to jail there, and besides, I was afraid that if I told anybody, they could get the $5,000 reward that Papa was offering for me." It was a very strange 3-day odyssey, by the end of which Adele was happy to be home, and only had $1 left. She surely received a stern punishment by her parents, despite their joy and relief of her returning home. The whole ordeal must have confirmed to them that she was in fact capable of walking the few blocks to school in the mornings by herself. Adele Boas' story became the template of sorts for a whole slew of cases since, involving white women disappearing under mysterious circumstances, and the unusually high level of media attention which their stories generate. The first clear example occurred in December 1910, a year and a half after Adele's brief disappearing act, when Dorothy Arnold, a 25-year-old New York heiress and socialite, vanished without a trace in New York after being out in Manhattan and telling a friend that she was going to walk home through Central Park. The New York newspapers were quick to remind the reading public at the time of the Boas case and how this was similar to Arnold's disappearance. However, sadly, in the case of Dorothy Arnold, she was never seen again in a confirmed manner, nor were her remains found if she fell victim to foul play of some kind. Far too many cases like these, unfortunately, did not have such a happy ending as the Boas one. Adele went on to live such an undramatic life that she avoided the media glare forever thereafter. Little is known about the rest of her life. Thank you so much everyone for watching this video on Adele Boas. I hope you found it interesting. I couldn't find any more information on her later life after this, so if you have any, be sure to leave it in the comments, and if you have suggestions, also be sure to leave it in the comments. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you haven't checked out my video on Dorothy Arnold, also check that out. I will leave it in the description and in the pinned comment. It is a very fascinating and tragic case. Anyway, I hope you guys are subscribed and have notifications turned on to get all my videos as soon as I upload them. Anyway, that's all from me, so I'll see all of you in the next Forgotten Life. Thanks.